Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael and we're going to be getting right back into some more Reddit stories. If you enjoy the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Now, without further ado, let's begin. This story was posted by a user named Conscious Tension in the AITAH subreddit. The post is titled AITAH for telling my parents to not include my stepdaughter in their will. I, 35F, have 2 kids, 17M and F, who are twins, and 1 stepdaughter, 18, whom I met when she was 11. The other day, I was at my parents' house going over some estate planning as I'm the executor. While reviewing, I saw my folks had split their assets to be half for my 2 siblings and me, and the other half for their grandkids, all to be distributed evenly. My stepdaughter was included. When I asked them about this, they said they wanted to be fair. Their estate isn't super large, but the sum would be substantial. I told my parents that while generous of them, I didn't think it would be necessary and would be better to split between their 5 grandkids. When we got home, my husband said he overheard what I said and that I was being a jerk for alienating his daughter. I told him my reasoning was because she is the only child/grandchild/niece on both her parents' sides and that she would be set. Her grandparents own multiple properties, her uncles are fairly well off and live in a H-Call area, and well, she's the only kid and it's not looking like that she'll have any cousins. Plus, their collective net worth is substantially more than my side. I also asked him if his parents included my kids in their estate, but he refused to answer. Still, he said I was being an AH and accused me of not caring about her future. I think I was doing the right thing by looking out for my kids and their cousins. Edit, I was told to include this in the post. I didn't argue with or pressure my parents to make a change. I simply mentioned that I don't feel it was necessary for her to receive a monetary amount. My mom plans on giving her a set of family heirloom jewelry that is her birthstone. I think this is quite thoughtful. I'm not a big jewelry person and she has other sets for the other girls in the family, so I feel this is okay. My parents have seen her about 3 to 5 times a year since I met her. My nephews and my kids do not have active relationships with their biological father's sides. My niece is a new mom and works at a restaurant. I feel that financial inheritance would be more impactful for them even as such a small amount. I know my SD is set to inherit at least 2 houses in a major US city with HCOL. I found this out a while back after my husband asked me to help him organize his office. I had to read through papers to know how to file them accordingly. The paper was a certified copy and was drafted soon after we married. My kids were not included. I'm not sure if it has been updated. I did not ask him about it at the time because I did not have an issue with it. There is distance in the relationship, but I don't feel it's my fault. I can explain this. When I met her mom for the first time, she made it very clear that I wasn't her mom. I didn't see this as an issue because I did not want to overstep, and as a mom myself, I could see where she was coming from and respected her request. But as time progressed, our opportunity to spend time together became less frequent. At first, my husband had every other weekend visitation. It became less frequent as she became a teenager because she wanted to spend the night with friends and hang out, which I see as normal teenager behavior. The other piece is that we were never invited to be included in major celebrations for her. We usually celebrated birthdays with her a week after because we weren't invited. My husband was just not us. She's also never spent Thanksgiving or Christmas with us because her mom wanted those days. Again, which I saw as fine because that's her only child. My husband would spend holidays with her at her mom's house, which I encouraged because I knew the importance of father-daughter connections. We also were not invited to her high school graduation. I think she's a beautiful and brilliant young woman, and I care for her tremendously, but it's challenging to develop deep, meaningful relationships with people you have little contact with. For people putting me in the category of the evil stepmother, saying that I see her as other, don't think that I haven't been trying since the beginning. I include her in every way I can in the times that she is with us by doing things like teaching her my family recipes, taking her shopping for clothes so that she doesn't have to bring things back and forth, and attending every school athletic event that I could. I have tried to include her in family vacation planning, but was told by her mother that unless the vacation occurred on a weekend we're scheduled to have with her, then she would not allow us to have the time. This limited our options to local weekend trips, but even then, her mom comes up with some reason she can't join, including surprise trips to another state. I even suggested a family cruise in lieu of a honeymoon to celebrate our new family, but it was blocked by her mom. My husband is allowed to take her on extended vacations as long as it's just the two of them. I have tried to be flexible in accommodations around holidays by postponing things like Christmas morning so that she can be included. This created frustration in my kids because they felt like they shouldn't have to put their lives aside to accommodate for her. One year when the holiday occurred on one of our planned weekends, I came up with the suggestion of celebrating Christmas on Christmas Eve so we could do the full family thing. My kids weren't thrilled, but they understood. In the end, we didn't end up spending any time with her as her mom told us that she planned on having a dinner party on Christmas Eve and needed my stepdaughter to help her prepare. When the time came for college applications, I was ecstatic to be asked by my stepdaughter to help her with the applications, but soon after was told that her mom hired a professional to help her get into her top choice schools, and I was no longer needed. I have tried to have a bond with her with the little time that I have. I have consistently brought up to my husband that I feel like we needed more time with her to help build our relationship, at the very least by him maintaining his every other weekend schedule. He has told me that ultimately her mom is her mom and she determines her schedule and how she spends her time. He has also expressed that he fears that if he undermines her mom, then he might lose the time and relationship that he does have with her, and I do not want to be the reason for any sort of break in their relationship. His time relationship with her hasn't changed, so maybe he doesn't see the need for me and my kids to be involved. But if he doesn't advocate for us, then what am I supposed to do? Major update, I haven't had the opportunity to have a discussion with my husband about all of this, as I was waiting to speak with my therapist to get advice on the best way to approach the conversation. However, I did receive a phone call this morning from my father-in-law who I see as an absolute angel of a man. Apparently, my husband told his mom about our argument and my mother-in-law went off, and this is how my father-in-law found out about it. Phil asked me what my side of the story was, and I very emotionally told him everything as I listed in the OP. I told him it was not my intention to alienate SD in any way, and that this whole thing has created a nightmare. After a deep breath and slight pause, my Phil said that I did the right thing. A few years ago, my Phil suffered a series of strokes. He said that this prompted him to want to reevaluate the estate to make sure that everything was in order. He is quite old, close to 90, and has a lot of underlying health issues. He and my mill share all of their assets, and she is also his POA in case anything happens. And because they have a family trust, he wanted to include her and his sons in the discussion. He told me that he brought up that he wanted to include my children in the family trust. He told me he proposed to allow for 10% of the trust's liquid assets to be split between my two kids to help get a start on life. He then said that my mill pushed back very hard, saying that because my children were not biologically related to their family, they should not be considered. When he asked my husband his thoughts on it, Fael said my husband's response was that it was best to keep it in the family, but that he would consider including us in his portion upon his passing if he and I were still together. Phil said this was a surprise because at that point we were still basically newlyweds and he was surprised a new husband would even think that way. My mill's response to that was unhappy, saying again we weren't blood and that this was a family issue. Because of the stress caused by the situation and because of the recent strokes, Fael did not want to press things further. Fael said afterward he pulled my husband aside to find out more about what he had meant and to be assured that my kids would be included. He was basically told by my husband that he would do what was best for his family, and the conversation was dropped. Now, Fael said that he didn't push further at this point because he was getting tired from the conversation, but in light of what's happening and how my MIL and husband are responding behind closed doors, he felt it was necessary to let me know. He said that SD is set to be more than okay when it comes time and that my husband has asked to tap into funds to pay for her college so she would not need to take out any loans, which he agreed to. He said he asked my husband if he would do the same for my kids and that my husband's response was that he would ask when the time came, as my kids did not yet know what was going to happen regarding college admissions. Phil asked me if my husband and I had this conversation. I told him that my husband and I had discussions about my kids' school and that they would need to take out loans, finish college, and then we would help pay off half of the loans together once they graduated. My husband has never suggested that anything for my kids' college would be paid for through his family trust. My fail was very apologetic, saying he should have pushed further as he loves us greatly and feels like he did not do enough. I told him it was not his fault and that he should not feel responsible for any of this, and that I did not want him to feel obligated to make any changes or bring it up with MIL and husband because I knew it would create additional stress for him and I wanted him to take care of his peace. He said though his desire would be to do so, that since his wife and he have a joint estate and that she is POA, he felt like it would be more trouble than it's worth. He is blind and has a lot of mobility issues, so anything he does, he is dependent on her. He also said that based on what he's heard on his side, he felt if he did update his will, then they would likely contest it, which would create a financial burden on my end, and he didn't want to create a negative situation. I told him again that it was okay and that we would be okay in life, and that he was not responsible for anything that happened. I told him that my intention wasn't to be added to the trust, just to make a point to my husband, to which he said he understood and agreed. He apologized again, we told each other how much we loved one another, and he ended the call saying he considered me a person of integrity, which is a rare gem. Now that I have this information, I feel like this whole situation brought to light a lot of things I hadn't considered regarding my marriage. Also, writing out everything regarding how my husband navigated his relationship with his daughter and ex-wife really put things into perspective that makes me feel like we were never a priority for him. I'm not sure where to go from here. I plan to bring this all up with my therapist and talk it out to figure out what I should do, but I no longer feel like the AH for advocating for my biological family, because my husband and his side have been advocating for theirs. TLDR, told my parents I thought it wasn't necessary to include SD in their will because she's set to inherit a lot from my husband's family. Husband got pissed and said I was alienating his daughter. Later got a call from my file saying I wasn't the jerk. User Landshark said, NTA, you stated your opinion and it doesn't sound like you pressured them. I think your parents are kind and it could be explained to your stepdaughter so her feelings wouldn't be hurt. Your husband needs to answer your question. Is your stepdaughter more important to him than his children with you? Does he not care about their future? If the stepdaughter's relatives' money was split with your children, it sounds like their future would be more secure. But I think it would be unfair to expect her relatives to share with unrelated children, and I would think they would not want to do so. Under this comment, OP said the following: I didn't pressure them, I just told them I didn't think it was necessary. I didn't even go into the details with them and left it at that. Nothing was changed over the course of our meeting. She is also set to receive a family heirloom jewelry set from my mom that happened to be her birthstone, which I thought was nice. And I don't expect them to share their assets with my kids. It has only ever been brought up with my husband because of this argument. I know she's set to receive a large portion, including 2 houses, because I saw some paperwork while cleaning my husband's office. It's a bit out of date, so I don't know if there's been an update, but it was drafted and I saw it shortly after he and I got married. I didn't bring it up to him then because I didn't expect my kids to be included. User SHD said either the grandparents of the stepdaughter split their assets equally with her and your kids, or each set of grandparents have their own grandkids as heirs. He doesn't want fairness. He wants his daughter to be the sole heir on his side, but also inherit from her stepmother's family. That's not how it works. You're not in a difficult situation at all. Sit your husband down and ask him if his daughter's maternal and paternal family are dividing their assets with your kids as well. If the answer is no, or a refusal to answer, then tell him you know she's getting at least 2 houses. Ask him to explain why your family should include his daughter as their heir if his family has not added your kids as heirs. Then just wait for him to explain. Don't argue or help him or jump in. Just sit there looking at him and let him fumble around. Tell him your kids are not giving up part of their inheritance in a one-way deal like that. User Mash said NTA. You weren't excluding your stepdaughter maliciously, you were considering that she's already financially supported by her biological family. I think it's fair to want your parents' estate to focus on your kids and their cousins who may not have as much support. Your husband likely feels protective, but your reasoning isn't wrong. Just make sure to communicate clearly so everyone's on the same page. This next post was made in the Am I Overreacting subreddit by a user named Temporary7. The post is titled, My boyfriend said he wishes I was still fat after losing weight, and I'm pissed. I, 21F, have been dating my boyfriend Adam, 28, for almost 3 years now. I feel like some context is needed to accurately describe our situation. When I was 15, my older brother passed away in a car accident, and it threw me into a depression where I became very overweight. He was my best friend and meant the world to me. Losing him led me into the worst years of my life. A few months after I turned 18, I met Adam. He was one of my friend's older brothers and we hit it off. He's smart, charismatic, and I loved his sense of humor. Adam is also heavy, but he was so comfortable in his skin, it really made me admire his confidence. I couldn't stand to even look at myself in a mirror, so this last year I buckled down and lost weight, a very significant amount, and now I'm even below my high school weight. I've never been this fit in my life, and I feel so good about myself. My 21st birthday was this last Saturday, and Adam and my friends had planned a party for me. Unfortunately, Adam had a family emergency, so he wasn't going to be around for my birthday. I was completely okay with this and reassured him that it was fine when I drove him to the airport. My friend Andrea recommended that we should instead go to a strip club, and I thought that was an amazing idea. I'd like to reiterate that it would have been a women's only strip club. The next time I talked to Adam, I told him about the change in plans, and he was very adamant that he didn't want me to go. He said it wasn't that he didn't trust me, it's that he didn't trust my friends. I ended up dropping the subject to not cause him further stress, and we ended up just having the party they originally planned. Adam arrived today and I felt something was off. Something has been off since I lost weight. I kept badgering him until he finally opened up. We talked and he eventually told me that we don't even look like we belong together anymore. He brought up an instance where we were at the grocery store a week ago and a guy was asking me questions about watermelons in the fruit section. It was a casual conversation, but he referred to my boyfriend as my brother and I quickly corrected him. The guy apologized, said we looked similar, and walked off. At the time, my boyfriend laughed it off and didn't bring it up again. He then said something that pissed me off so bad. He said, "Sometimes I wish you were still big so no one else would want you." I lost all sympathy and quickly corrected him. I told him even when I was a big girl, guys hit on me all the time. And just like I always do, I told them I have a boyfriend that I love. He looked dumbfounded when I said this. I told him how fucked it was, that he wishes that I was back at the size where I was depressed and hated myself. He told me he misspoke and I'm blowing things out of proportion. We argued more and he ended up leaving to his brothers to give me space. I've been sitting here just pissing myself off about what he said. Did he really think I was that unattractive when I was bigger? If so, why did he date me? Did he think I was desperate to be with someone because I was so fat? I just need some third-party advice. Am I overreacting? User my name is said, "You are 21 and feeling good about yourself. Maybe it's time to lose about 300 pounds more of dead weight and leave the guy that snatched up an 18-year-old when he was 25 because he thought no one else wanted her." User Christian Ramirez said he was a 25-year-old seeking out an 18-year-old to date. Trust that when you're 25, you'll see how big a gap that is. He was probably dating someone that much younger than him because girls his age didn't want him, and he thought you'd be easier to control. Even if this wasn't an active thought, the second you took control of your body by losing weight, he was unhappy. A good partner hypes you up when you achieve something you wanted. They don't try to cut you down. This dude is not worth the time of day. Under this comment, OP said the following: "Well, all I know is that his previous relationship lasted 5 years, and it was a girl he dated in college. I never really considered that he had the intention to control me, and I really hope that isn't the case. This is the first comment he's really made that cut me down, but now that I think about it, you are right. He hasn't really hyped me up either." A couple days later, OP gave us an update. "I want to start by saying thank you to everyone for giving me their opinions and advice. It really means a lot to me. I debated if I should post again, but I need an outlet to vent. I've been laying here in the dark and I've read basically all the comments and I think an update is warranted. Basically, Adam and I are taking a break and I've been crying my eyes out for the last few hours. He came home today and we both agreed that we need to talk and get everything out in the open. He started off by apologizing for what he said, particularly the 'sometimes I wish you were still big so no one else would want you' part. I asked if he thought I was unattractive when I was bigger and he said no, but he doesn't understand why I'm dieting and exercising the way I am. Adam said I shouldn't have to cook 2 different meals and should just eat what he does, and me going to the gym 6 times a week is obsessive. I told him that it makes me happy bettering myself and he said that it has completely changed me. Adam went on to talk about how all I really care about is my looks now. He said he liked my hair, how it used to be before I went to a stylist. He liked how I used to paint my own nails instead of getting them done, and how I used to never wear makeup instead of how I have to have some on now before I go out. Adam then said he knows I lost weight because I was unhappy with myself, but he was always happy with me, and he doesn't understand why I have to keep trying to make myself hotter when I was already hot. We talked back and forth, but it felt like I was just doing everything wrong. Adam said that I don't ever want to do things he enjoys anymore, like play video games with him or binge watch movies, and he feels like I'm a different person. I have pushed him to go on walks with me or go to the gym in the past, but he's told me no, so I figured we just had our different hobbies. I feel bad because I see from his point I have changed and I may not be the girl he fell in love with. I told him I love him and he said he loves me too, but we need to separate for a bit and figure out if we're best for each other. I didn't argue, I just said okay and let him pack his things and leave. He's letting me stay in the apartment until I can move my stuff out. I've been crying my eyes out and everything feels like a blur. I don't know where to go from here and I feel like I ruined my first real relationship. One user commented, "You did nothing wrong. You are discovering who you are and your style, your hobbies." And he may see that as a fundamental difference in values, rightly or wrongly. My husband and I are both quite laid back in regard to our appearance, which helps us be on the same wavelength about how much time, effort, money, and importance we put on grooming, shopping, etc. Then one day I mentioned an interest in joining a gym and he was so distraught. I wanted a way to exercise because I am out of shape. He saw gym membership as the hallmark of a completely different person and could not reconcile the person he knew me to be with his concept of the superficial gym bro. I ended up not joining, but I think he also chilled out after speaking to friends who didn't see gym attendance as restricted to certain personalities or values. I share this to raise the possibility that your BF associates working out every day and spending money on your looks as things that people fundamentally different from him do. If you live in the US, I think school social hierarchies draw lines around rigid stereotypical identities. Popular hot jocks, nerds, goths, potheads, he might be thinking of his identity rather rigidly and maybe in that way you don't match. Regardless, you did nothing wrong and it hurts. And love isn't always enough. I hope whatever happens, you give yourself grace. With time, you will find someone who embraces you entirely. Under this comment, another user said, "I remember when I was younger, going through my hippie grunge thing and I'd get my nails done and feel like I betrayed my whole self or something. But I loved getting my nails done. Or when I'd wear heels and dresses, I was giving up on my more laid-back self, but I love that stuff too. I'm so glad I got older and realized I can get my nails done, put on pretty makeup, wear a dress and heels, while also being the person who wears whatever they find first and some slip-on shoes." In my opinion, OP's boyfriend is stuck in a very immature mindset of either us or them, when you can be all of it and everything in between whenever you want. Just because I like my nails being pretty doesn't mean I also don't love to go hiking and climb a tree or whatever. Just because I sometimes put effort into my appearance doesn't mean I'm not down to earth and can't laugh at myself. No one is just one thing and that's it. Even if I'd like to try and act differently, at my core I'm the same person.